were still looking for work, and I had no idea what I was going to do, and I stumbled upon a Marine Corps recruiter. But I think the biggest risk that we took, and I'm so grateful that we did, it's a really sweet God story, but I was afforded the opportunity to take a position with UPS here locally, which, for most people would be a dream job, and it is a dream job. It's a wonderful career, and I thought all I could do was fly, but the Lord revealed to me through a sequence of events that was probably not the perfect place for me to be. There was the thrill of the hunt in sales, and I loved working with the people. I loved helping people achieve their dreams. I loved seeing that look on their face when they were there, when they knew that's where they wanted to build their home, or that was the home that they wanted to buy in that subdivision. And for me, it was way more fun than the cockpit. So I started out in sales and quickly realized that I could do it, quickly realized that I was able to be successful, recognized that the more I did it, the more money I could make. I jumped in, was brought on to the leadership team, thinking that I was planning for the future, not knowing that the company was getting ready to be sold. Within 4 or 5 months, I became the general manager of the company and held that role for a year until the original owner ultimately stepped away, and I became the CEO in January of 2001. We're sitting in the airport. We're sitting over in the at the gate area, looking out the windows, shooting the breeze, catching up. We get on the airplane. We walk on the airplane. I'm talking to them all as they're in their seats. I sit down, seatbelt buckled. The steward or stewardess gets up and starts going through the seatbelt thing. At that point in time, they ask you to grab the card out of the front of your seat. And it was at that point that I realized that I had never looked out the window at the airplanes. I was getting ready within 10 days to transition my entire life to become a commercial airline pilot. And I realized subconsciously, I had no interest. I had no interest. I was just done. And I spent the next 9 to 10 months really anxious, really troubled, because I knew I wanted to keep working. I needed to keep working, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I couldn't picture the next step.
All right, welcome back to the Risky Business Podcast. I'm very excited for today's guest. I say that every time. That's because I also am every time excited for the guest. And today is Mr. Brad DeVries. If you are from the Louisville area, you've probably heard the name Brad DeVries. He, if you just see him from the outside, you probably saw, okay, he ran Simmons & Realtors for the last X number of years. But also, what most people don't know is Brad also ran 2 other similar market sized in Lexington and Cincinnati real estate brokerages. So he was doing 3 all at the same time. Recently, he transitioned into a new role, which I'm super excited to hear about, which was a risk that he took. And he's also been chairman of the elders at Southeast for a long time and served his church really well. And he's an incredible dad and father and friend and all these things. So, Brad, thanks for sitting down with me, and I'm honored to.
Thanks, Sam.
Honored to sit down and talk with you.
It's great to be with you.
And congrats on the first podcast.
Yeah, first podcast,
exciting.
Rookie, podcast rookie.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You've done how many news hits? This is probably
find out.
This is probably a whole lot easier than those. I would hope.
Let's hope.
So tell us about yourself. I'd love to hear who is Brad DeVries that people might not know, and introduce yourself a little bit.
Gosh, that's a hard question. I'd rather talk about anything but me, but
It's gonna be a tough day for you then.
I better start this off right. I've been married to Jennifer for 41 years. I hope I've got that right. This past May, we've got 8 amazing children, and I think we've got 18 grandchildren, 1 on the way. The Lord has been kind enough to put a number of other wonderful children, women, young men in our lives, for a season of time. And we're very, very grateful for that. But a grandparent, worked in real estate for a long time, as you mentioned.
How many years was that?
I was in collectively between the developer that I worked for and the residential brokerage business. It was 33 years.
Wow.
33 years. And it was a blast. I loved it. It was a perfect fit for me. And I know we'll talk more about that later. But a lot of grandkids, a lot of kids, a lot of kids married to wonderful spouses. Love our church. Been a part of.
You only have
Southeast.
one spouse. You're about to say a lot of spouses.
I'm talking about all the kids' spouses. They did almost as well as I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were walking in and you were saying some stuff to me, and I was like, hold on, we got to sit down in the chair before we get this rolling, because you were hitting on when I first shared the podcast to you, and kind of why I do it was really encouraging young people to take risk. And you said, well, it's funny because you just jumped into a big risk.
Yeah.
And we're not the exact same age. We're a couple years apart. And so a little bit later in life, you jumped into a big risk that was, let's rewind the clock back a little bit. You were in the Marines.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yep. So straight out of college, the economy was a wreck. Had no idea what I was going to do. Guys who had way better grade point averages than me were still looking for work, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I stumbled upon a Marine Corps recruiter. And to make a long
Did you grow
story,
up in Louisville?
I did not. I grew up in South Florida, but I went to school at Center College in Danville.
Oh, no way.
I met the most amazing woman in the world, Jennifer Sparrow. We were married right after I finished college. But right when I got out of school, I made the decision to accept a commission in the United States Marine Corps as an officer. So yeah, that's what I did. And I think that was kind of the purpose of our discussion in the hallway when you talked about encouraging people to take risks as young men and women early in their lives and not to hold back from that. I thought, well, gosh, the technical risk I've taken here recently is at age 64, which, is probably, when people are done taking risks. But I think the biggest risk that we took, and I'm so grateful that we did, it's a really sweet God story, but I was afforded the opportunity to take a position with UPS here locally, which, for most people would be a dream job. And it is a dream job. It's a wonderful career. And I thought all I could do was fly. But the Lord revealed to me through a sequence of events that that was probably not the perfect place for me to be. Just based on my personality, just based on my ADD, my ADHD, whatever it is that I've got.
That's why you went to real estate.
So I went to real estate, but he did. The Lord showed me that I believe he showed me that I was intended to be with and around many people. And it was a wonderful fit for me, but it was a risk. Most people would have gone the other route. We made the choice to go the real estate route, and I'm so grateful that I did.
So how old were you when you were offered that job at UPS?
I think I was 31. I think I was 31 years old. It was right when UPS started their massive wave of hiring in 1994. So I guess I was 33 is what I was, 33 years old.
So go back to when you started the real estate, what did it look like? Were you a traditional agent? Did you jump into the brokerage side of things? What did that look like for you?
A local developer here in town. I had the opportunity to meet him, and he was so kind to me, and I think felt sorry for me. There I was. I had no job when I first got out of the Marine Corps. I thought I was going to be a pilot, couldn't find a job. It was before UPS started hiring in 1992. And he gave me what I always call a sympathy job. I was a part-time pilot and a part-time salesman. So I was either in the cockpit in the co-pilot seat of a small business jet, or I was working on site selling home sites in Lake Forest, Sutherland, the Springs, and Copperfield here in Louisville.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you were working for the developer, selling off to builders or to individuals who were going to hire builders?
Individuals. I was sitting in a sales center, sitting in a model home, waiting for folks to come in the door. Truly had no idea what I was doing. But it was shortly after that, within the first 6 months, after getting a handful of sales under my belt, that I realized that, there was the thrill of the hunt in sales. And I loved working with the people. I loved helping people achieve their dreams. I loved seeing that look on their face when they were there, when they knew that's where they wanted to build their home, or that was the home that they wanted to buy in that subdivision. And for me, it was way more fun than the cockpit. And I know people would wince at that, but it was just what it was. There were the relationships, there was the education, there was the process, there were the families that were involved. For me, it was a blast. So I started out in sales and quickly realized that I could do it. Quickly realized that I was able to be successful. Recognized that the more I did it, the more money I could make, and then over time, opportunities were opened for me at the developers at that location that afforded me the ability to lead.
So how did you get involved with Semnon? Did you start Semnon? Was Semnon around before? How did you even get connected there?
Semnon's been around for, if anybody watches this, they'll hate me for not being able to come up with the number. I think it's 110 years now. I think Semnon's 110 years old.
You didn't start it.
I did not start it. Definitely close, but did not start it. No, I worked for the developer for 7 years. And somewhere in that time was afforded the opportunity to move over to Seminon to succeed the owner because he was getting ready to sell the business. He was looking for a leader and was looking for somebody to take the reins for him, which was just an opportunity. Again, I would have never had that opportunity had it not been for that season with the developer.
You were 38 at the time?
Yeah,
39?
I think I was 38 at the time. I'd have to do the quick math, but I'm close to that. I was 38 years old.
Wow.
I was 38 years old when I made the move over. He needed somebody to succeed him as the CEO. He was getting ready to sell the business ultimately to a parent company that was became an affiliate of Berkshire Hathaway. And that's when I started, 1999 over at Seminon Realtors, and never left.
Good night. But you were never a traditional residential style agent. You were you went from the development side to the
Great question.
leadership side of it.
I worked in sales for the developer. I sold home sites. I helped market builders' homes, but I was never a traditional license carrying residential real estate agent. Nope, I sure wasn't. I was afforded the opportunity to jump right into the.
You didn't have to be wrong. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's hard. It's
it is
not
a hard
for the
life
faint at heart, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so you jump in. You're 38 years old. You jump in as running the company.
Yeah, almost.
Running Seminon.
Yeah, not quite. I jumped in, was brought on to the leadership team, thinking that I was planning for the future, not knowing that the company was getting ready to be sold. The company was sold about 4 months after I arrived, and then within 4 or 5 months, I became the general manager of the company. And held that role for a year until the original owner, ultimately stepped away, and I became the CEO in January of 2001.
Wow. And how many agents did they have at that time?
Yeah, I don't remember, 450, 500, somewhere
really?
in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
because I believe
right.
it's the largest agent-wise now.
It is.
In Kentucky.
It is.
And that was just 1/3. What's wild is I don't even know the questions to ask you on the Lexington and Cincinnati one. So
that's okay. That's okay. There were a lot of agents. There were a lot of agents. There were a lot of employees. We were in the Lexington market. We were in the Louisville market, and in the Southern Indiana market. We weren't down in E-Town yet. It was the learning curve was vertical, a lot of people, all independent contractors, all the agents are independent contractors as you are, right? They own their own business and you're trying to help lead them. You're trying to help encourage them and support them. And they've all got different mindsets, different visions, different needs, trying to balance all that I learned a lot. I walked in thinking I could snap my fingers and it'd be like it was in the Marine Corps and everybody would, just yell how high. And I found out that wasn't the case. It was a little harder than that.
It's kind of revert, it's funny the way, obviously this, but for a listener, when you think of running a real estate brokerage or 3 of them, it's kind of reverse of what every other business is, because every other business, everybody else works for you. And in a sense, you actually work for every single independent contractor that chooses to put their license at your brokerage. And it's a hard life because you're not just, you can't, like the military, snap your fingers and say, jump, and they'll say, well, all right, I'm leaving, sign this form, I'm going to a different brokerage. And so it's more of you're constantly almost interviewing and auditioning to keep your job every single year in a situation where people are being poached, picked off, and recruited.
Yeah.
Not just during like college football in a 1-2 month period. It's literally all the time. Yeah. And so it kind of reminds me as I look at NIL now, real estate is kind of a lot like NIL, where it's everybody's offering more money and greener grass over here.
Today it's like sports, right? Today it's like college sports. I always equated it to the church, similar to the church, not the poaching part, but every day, whether you're a small church or a big church, you've got to bring great messages and hopefully have great worship and great discipleship and fellowship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't, somebody's going to go looking for greener grass. They're going to go look for a place that's a better fit for them. And when they leave, it hurts, right? And for me, that was probably in my 26-year tenure in real estate. That was the hardest part for me. You'd fall in love with somebody, you'd become friends with them, you'd know their families, you became close, and they would leave, and it was really painful. Didn't mean it wasn't best for them. It didn't mean it wasn't right for them. It was just real painful for us as leaders, just like it would be for a pastor if somebody chose to attend another church.
I was talking to somebody, they had the Spire conference in town this last week. And so I got to hang out with a bunch of pastors who were in town, and it's every single one I talked to, because I just post so much out there that I'm in real estate that it's easy. It's an easy first conversation. People are always like, oh, how's real estate? And it's funny, as I talked to more of them, it started when they were asking about stresses in my life. And I found this out with my dad as well. So much of the stresses that you have in real estate, the job is so similar to being a pastor. It's literally, by the end of it, I was laughing because I was breaking it down with him. I was like, so you work all the time. Everybody's your boss. You don't have one person you check in with. It's everybody. You work with people when they are at their most stressful time of their year, and they need you on no matter if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Easter, if the right house lists, or if that family member passes away. You're walking into a hard situation where there's a divorce, or somebody died, or
the highest and the lowest of emotions.
Yes, and that's church too. And it's funny. It's been fun to have.
And they contact you when they need you, not when you want to talk to them. Right.
It's true. And I'm not complaining. I love my job. It really is great. And I feel like, as you mentioned before, when you felt like, okay, you had this job offer as a pilot, and everybody would sit there and go, that's a great career.
Right.
And that's consistent. That is, not risky to take a job as a UPS pilot, where you could be very successful in Louisville and live a very comfortable life with 8 kids as a UPS pilot. And, but I think we're wired in similar ways to where our minds don't really work like it, you know what I mean? Like the excitement is not there if I'm just sitting there going, okay, well, here's the buttons I press. Here's what I need to do to make it.
I think it's important that you know yourself. And I don't take credit for having known myself in 1994 when that came up. Real quick story. So,
it doesn't have to be quick. We got time.
I had wanted to be an airline pilot. I knew that was what I was supposed to be. I had seen the lives that some of these guys were living. I knew the time off that they had. I had it all figured out. I had forgotten to tell the Lord about it, but I had it all figured out. I got offered the job. I accepted it over the phone with UPS, had a start date, would have been in March of 1994. I was going down, we had one more trip down to the islands with a group of builders and realtors. We used to do these incentive trips with the developer I worked for. And I had to go down and do that one last trip before I would step away. And I was going to go down and talk to the owner of the company at his request while we were down there. Anyway, we go to the airport to fly out with a bunch of builders and a bunch of realtors. And I'm in the airport and I'm talking to all my customers and all their spouses and making sure that everybody's set up and excited and talking to them about what we're going to do and all the activities and stuff that we've got planned for the upcoming week, wherever we were going, St. Martin, St. Thomas, doesn't matter. We're sitting in the airport. We're sitting over in the at the gate area, looking out the windows and shooting the breeze, catching up. We get on the airplane. We walk on the airplane. I'm talking to them all as they're in their seats. I sit down. I get my seatbelt buckled. The steward or stewardess gets up and starts going through the seatbelt thing. At that point in time, they ask you to grab the card out of the front of your seat. And it was at that point that I realized that I had never looked out the window at the airplanes. I had never, when I got on the airplane and boarded, I never looked into the cockpit. I was getting ready within 10 days to transition my entire life to become a commercial airline pilot. And I realized subconsciously, I had no interest. I had no interest. My interest was in the people that I was with and the customers that I was with, the builders and the realtors and the folks we'd created relationships with. And I realized at that point in time, I'm not supposed to go there. I really believe, and I know you'll get to this, but I really believe that whatever we do for a living, to the best of our ability, it has to align with our gifts, and we need to be passionate about it. If we will, it'll never feel like work.
That's cool. That's a good story. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's a good transition on to, what you just hit on deciding what you want to do. And I think you're a good example of, it doesn't mean that you're deciding it for the rest of your life. You can transition things and you can say, hey, this was a good period of time that I did this. And this was a good time for me to build this and hand it off to somebody and who's going to grow it on to bigger and better things, but you to jump onto something else that you are passionate about. And I think that's it so well correlates to, you have people that, you know what I mean? Like the Simenon realtors in town who've worked with you for a long time, they love you. And it is so evident on every time you post on Facebook. It's just all these agents who you've worked for forever that just truly love you. And so I think it's it was awesome. You started Home Smiles, which is the shirt you're wearing. So tell us about that and the transition and kind of what started that and what that's about.
Yeah. I not that the job wasn't hard, as you articulated so well earlier. Real estate can be hard. I mean, there's ups and there's downs. If the economy's really struggling, real estate will tend to struggle. There are challenges, people coming and going from your firm. Those things are always hard. Picking up new markets, those things are hard. But I loved my job. I really did. In fact, I would regularly comment to friends that I felt like I had one of the, if not the best job in town. I was given a lot of autonomy. I loved what I did. I loved the people that I worked with. I felt like it was a good alignment with my gift set. Not that I was great at what I did, but for me and my gift set, I felt like it was the right role, and I loved it. And about a year before I stepped away, I woke up one day and I didn't want to go to work on Monday. I didn't want to go to work on Monday, and I was really.
I feel like there's a lot of people out there who don't want to go to work on Mondays, but continue.
So this is where you should tune in. But I didn't. That's not the way I felt. For the longest time, I loved going to work on Mondays. There was a great book written years ago. I don't remember the guy's name. Some of the listeners may have listened or may have read it. It's called Loving Monday. Right. It's a great faith-based book on the work environment and your role in it. But I loved what I did, and I loved going to work on Mondays. I woke up and I was done, and I can't explain it. I don't know that there's one thing. It wasn't one person. It wasn't the industry. I love the industry. The company was continued to be very good to me. They were very kind to me. The people that I worked with and for were wonderful, et cetera. But I just realized I was done. But Sam, I had no idea what I was going to do. None. I had not planned for that day. I had not prepared for that day. I was convinced I would do that. As long as they would have me, I was convinced I would do it till I was 70 plus years old, like many of my peers had done. And I woke up and I realized I can't do it. And it wasn't the pace. I was just done. And I spent the next 9 to 10 months really anxious, really troubled, because I knew I wanted to keep working. I needed to keep working. But I didn't know what it was going to be. And I couldn't picture the next step. I was wandering through that season 9 months into it, and I ended up getting a phone call from a peer of mine in San Francisco who knew of the guy who started the Home Smiles franchise in Cincinnati. And that guy in Cincinnati wanted to meet with me to get in front of our agents. We have another 450 agents in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati market. And so for this friend, I agreed to sit down and have lunch with this guy who started this new firm up at this Home Smiles franchise. I didn't know what it was in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. And I met with him, and he talked for an hour about what his company did and about who the customers were and about what the opportunities were and about the value proposition. And the longer he talked, I won't say the skies parted, but it became really clear to me that I need to look a lot closer at this. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so when was this? This was a year ago?
Yep. This would have been August or September. This is probably September of 24.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then, or beginning of 25-ish? When did you step down at Simba?
Yeah. So I listened to him. He explained the company. I got on the phone with the founder. I was fortunate enough to be able to get in front of him. Had a couple long conversations with him and other team members, and realized what they do and who they're, again, who the customer is, what the market is. Realized, I think this is what I want to do. In the meantime, I'm looking at all kinds of other businesses. I felt like a 64-year-old Sam Stone is what I felt like, right? Just I was awakened to all the opportunities that were out there, and I was so excited, and I wanted to do many of them, but slowly but surely we pared it down. We ended up starting 2 new businesses at the turn of the year. We started the Home Smiles business, which we'll talk about, I know, in just a minute. But my son-in-law and I also bought a Federal Express pickup and delivery business as well. So
FedEx.
Yeah.
Nice.
FedEx.
Okay. What's that look like?
Yep. Terry and I bought 25 FedEx trucks initially. We bought 25 trucks, had about 30 drivers. It was an existing business, covers all of Oldham County, covers Crestwood, LaGrange, Prospect, Goshen, covers all of Norton Commons, where we happen to be sitting.
Okay, you can just buy FedEx routes?
Yeah, so the vast majority, 90 some odd plus % of all the FedEx deliveries that you see throughout town are done by independent contractors. Individuals own those trucks and are given the right to serve a certain area. All the pickup or most of the pickup and delivery within those areas and those zip codes. And so we bought a business and we are operating that today. We actually stood it up on May 30th. Terry will kill me. May 30th, whatever the last day of May is. And then we were also recently afforded the opportunity to do the same thing in the Frankfurt market. So we've got, ultimately, I think within the next couple of weeks, we'll have 50 trucks we'll have 40 trucks, 50 drivers, give or take, operating from Frankfurt all the way through Henry County and into Oldham County, into parts of Jefferson. So yeah.
So who gets the calls when packages don't show up? I'm guessing that's not your.
So it's not me. It's not me. Terry's running that one day to day. But again, it was a for most people it was a risky move, if you will, right? At my age, at mine and
how
Jennifer's
do you scale
age.
a FedEx? Like, what's the growth? How do you grow a FedEx business? Because do you have options on?
Well, we were fortunate again when we had the area that we had, and then an area opened up in the Frankfurt market. As I understand it, there was a contractor that no longer had the right to continue that area, and it was put out for bid, and we ultimately bid on that, and we were chosen, if you will, among others, to take that area. And then as future areas open up, we would have opportunities to scale. There are opportunities to go serve other markets that are struggling for short or long periods of time. It's a whole nother business in and of itself, but it's exciting. It's really, really fun. So we engaged in that, and then dove into Home Smiles at the same time. Terry leads the FedEx side of the business. Jennifer and I are owners with Terry, and then Jennifer and I own Home Smiles, and I operate that on my own.
You hit on it earlier on, there's just, you said you felt like a 64-year-old Sam Stone, just like looking at everything. Yeah. I think that was one of the most interesting things for me. And if I could challenge somebody listening to this who's, no matter your age, thinking about a change in work, and just the small amount I dipped my toe in meeting with people and talking with them about different things, there are so many different avenues and opportunities to, not that making a ton of money is the end goal in any way, but in order to support your family and do it in a way where you actually have time to spend with them, there are so many opportunities and interesting ways in today's market to make money that I'd never heard in my life before that you could buy FedEx routes. And it's like, here's a way that you can, invest, buy, build up, and support people better. And obviously someone's making money on it. So it's pretty cool.
When I woke up a little over a year and a half ago, and realized I've got to do something different, when you get motivated, all of a sudden, things start to appear. Right. And a friend of mine turned me on to a great website. It's called BizBuySell.com. And I got on this website, and it's businesses that are for sale all over the country. And you just start surfing through them, and it's everything you can imagine. And I had never thought of any of them.
BizBuySell.com.
BizBuySell.com. The minute you type in biz, it's going to populate on Google. And it is a great website, but it opened my eyes to opportunities that were out there that I just didn't know existed. It also opened my eyes as to ways to acquire these businesses that I didn't know that I had the ability to do it. Lo and behold, you can use your retirement funds to start businesses. There's a whole niche, it's called ROBS, rollover for business startup. I was able to use the funds that we've got in order to be able to jump into this. Again, a lot of people wouldn't do it. Jennifer and I couldn't wait to do it. We were so excited. It was such a neat opportunity. But we started looking at all of a sudden, once you see all that's out there, your brain just starts swirling. And then if you take your time, slowly but surely, again, based on your gift set, based on your passions, hopefully you get to a point where you realize this one's right for me and that one's not.
Okay, so pause real quick.
Yes, sir.
You keep mentioning, obviously, your wife, Jennifer, in the way that whenever you talk about risk, and I hadn't thought of this at all until you just mentioned it for the third or fourth time, but as somebody who I feel like we are similar minded, when, you're ready to take a risk, you're ready to jump in. As a guy, how do you have the conversation about risk and jumping into it. Maybe you and Jennifer are on the exact same path to where you're both ready to jump in and take risks. But let's say you're talking to somebody who's my age who's saying, hey, my wife and I are not on the exact same page on jumping in and taking risk.
Yeah.
What's your advice there?
Great question. Well, uniquely enough, both Jennifer and I are what I would call risk takers. I mean, we have been, whether it was with our family or where we lived or what we did for a living or who we chose to support. I think both of us are risk takers. So that makes that part a little bit easy. It's interesting. When I interviewed with UPS back in 1994, I can still remember the female pilot person that was a part of the leadership and recruiting team looking at me and saying the same thing. She said, "You've mentioned your wife a lot. I don't know how you do something like this without being in alignment with your spouse. I don't know how you do it." I think for some spouses, it might happen quickly. For some, it might take time. But I think the ability to be evenly yoked in that area as it relates to your desires, the future, the risk, the inherent risk, I think it's really, really important. Jennifer and I have spent a lot of time talking about each and every one of these moves that we've ever made. But I would tell you for her, she was probably most excited. First of all, she loves a mountain to climb. She loves the thrill of, she loves roller coasters, man. I mean, it's just how she rolls. But she was very much willing to do almost anything to get me back into a place where I felt fulfilled because she knew I wasn't. She knew I wasn't, and she knew I was struggling, and she knew that, that time had come to an end. As much as I loved all the people I worked with and for and alongside of, she knew that the time had come. So yeah, having her on board was critical. And so yeah, we were all in together, and we continue to be all in together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us about Home Smiles. You've alluded to it.
Yeah.
What is the business? How does it serve people? Who does it serve?
It serves a lot of people. I think it's a little deceiving, the name. Home Smiles would indicate it's just a home-based business, or it's a business that serves homes, which, nothing could be further from the truth. I think it was designed originally for that, but later all of us figured out that it fit in the commercial realm as well. But it's a property services management tool, if you will. We do pressure washing, we do window washing, we clean gutters, we clean rooftops, we seal concrete, we wash buildings, we replace HVAC filters and smoke alarms. We do all kinds of inside and outside maintenance work, if you will, for people who either shouldn't be doing it, can't do it, or don't want to do it, right? They've gotten to an age, I don't need to be on a 40-foot ladder, right? I don't need to be on a 20-foot ladder. There are some people who physically cannot do it. I can do it. I just shouldn't do it. There are people who don't have the time to do it. They're trying to buy some of their time back, or they'd rather be doing something else. On the residential side, I tell people, for the most part, it's for folks who have more money than time. Doesn't mean they're wealthy. It just means they've got more money than they have spare time to do those things, or they just don't have any interest. On the commercial side, it's businesses where their image is important. We do a lot of business in the neighborhood that we're sitting in right now. We do a lot of business in Eastern Jefferson County. We do it in Southern Indiana. We've done business down at Nolin. But our team goes in and takes care of the stuff that you either can't or shouldn't be doing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. And because I've seen the social media stuff you guys put out, which is fun.
Yeah.
What's the main way people connect with you guys or
reach
out to you guys and get quotes? I think
social media has been
things?
the big one. I was fortunate enough, if you belong to a big enough family, a big enough church, and a big enough company, and you're on social media, you end up knowing a lot of people. And so I think for me, social media was what spurred it on. A lot of the folks that knew me or knew of me or we were connected in some way were afforded the ability to see those advertisements, see those posts on a regular basis. And that's the way that most people got a hold of us. They either give us a quick call, they scan the QR code, they go to the website, or they pick up their phone and text me. And we advertise in a couple of different neighborhoods in town. There's 3 different magazines that we advertise in pretty regular to stay in front of the customers that we think are most important or that we think would be most likely apt to use us. So yeah, we try to stay in front of them as good as we can. We were early on doing a lot of posts, a lot of local posts. I've slowed down on that a little bit, and I need to crank that back up. We just, quite frankly, got super busy during the summer, and that slowed that down a little bit. But yeah, we found folks respond really, really well to it. I mean, they want their driveway cleaned up. They want their pool area cleaned up. There's garbage all over their roof. Their gutters are full. Their windows they can't see through, and we've helped fix a lot of that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So what does growth look like for it? What's your idea for it? Do you have any risk that you see in the future that you're jumping into, or are you saying right now you're in the building phase of this?
I think the founder of the company says every rooftop is a client. I would tend to agree with him. Whether you're a business or you're residential, everybody could use us. Whether or not everybody can afford us is another story. But I know, based on what little time I've spent in the market since February 1st, I know that there are lots and lots of people out there that are looking for what we have to offer. The fun part about us is that if you need your dryer vent done, or you need your gutters done, or you need your windows done, or you want the pressure washing done, or you want a subscription model that takes care of your home and all those maintenance needs year round, we have the ability to do all of those things with one call, which most of our competitors, that's not the case. And so it's just a matter of getting the word out. We've got super trustworthy technicians that I would trust with the PIN number to my bank account, and I really mean that. And I think that matters to people when they've got folks coming in their house and spending considerable amount of time in their home or on their property or on their families. So yeah, I think growth is it's word of mouth, it's referrals, which those are coming quicker and quicker every day. We've been really fortunate. Again, I think because. So I'll go all the way back to 1994 when I made the decision not to go into the cockpit, but to stay with the developer. And staying with the developer created an opportunity for me to be able to assume the lead role for Semin & Realtors. And that afforded me the opportunity to lead the other two companies in the other two markets. But all of that has afforded me the opportunity to have a great network as it relates to this business. We had a convention in Denver, Colorado 2 weeks ago. And we were named, or I was named Rookie of the Year. I'm pretty sure I'm the oldest rookie that's ever walked. And the only rookie that needed to use the handrail to get up on the thing. But I really believe, Sam, it didn't have anything to do with the fact that we were, better marketers or that we were even better at our trade than everybody else. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we're fortunate enough to know a lot of people locally, and that's really benefited us. So again, that risk early on has benefited us in this later chapter, this most recent chapter as it relates to business.
I think it's a good example, no matter what age you are, when you take your risk, it seems like the word comes out every episode. I sit down with somebody saying, take calculated risks. But take calculated risks based on what's the life experience that I've walked through. Whether you're like me and I was 26 years old when I started real estate, and it was, okay, what's the life experience I've walked through? What does my sphere look like? I chose to go into a place like you mentioned.
That's right.
With every roof is somebody who could be somebody that needs your help. For me, every person needs a roof over their head.
Everybody.
So I can jump into something to where I can help every single person. And, I have friends that are in the medical device sales where it's like, hey, I sell this very specific piece for this very specific type of surgery for this very specific doctor. And there's 10 of them in the world, and I got to get on a plane to California to go sell. And for me, it's like, find the thing that what's the life experience that you have that God's put in your path leading up to this. Maybe it's since 1994, maybe it's since 2004, and maybe it's since last year. And you just say, what has God taught me? Who has he put in my path to where I can take the life experience that I have, and that I can take a calculated risk based on that. And so I think that's, somebody who's listened to our conversation, also I think you're a prime example of this, and I don't think you would say it, so I'll say it for you. But when you treat people really well for a long period of time, like you have like a fan base of Semin & Realtors and agents who are in town who just truly love you. And no matter if you went into porta potty sales, they would have been advocates for your porta potty sales because they love you so much and they know what type of person you are. And I think that's a challenge to young people who are listening to this, or any age who are listening to this, who sit there and go, okay, there's this easy, shiny object syndrome, and of every 2 years, I'm going to jump to this new thing. And this looks like that's easy money. Let me go jump into that. This looks like they have a lot of time with family. Let me jump into that. And then you look back and go, well, you burned bridges 8 different times to get to that final thing that you got to. And now those are the 8 different groups of people that you still run with, you still run into, and they are your advocates for your future business, and you burn bridges all the way there. Right. And I think you're a really, really good example of not burning bridges and really taking what you've done and building on it.
You've said so many things in there that I wish I could comment on. A couple thoughts. A couple thoughts. First of all, when I recruited real estate agents, which I did for 26 years, I would tell anybody that was contemplating getting into the business that what I loved about this business was that, to your point, everybody that you know and everybody that you meet is either a potential customer or a potential referral of that same thing. If I'm only selling a niche medical device, there's only so many people that are going to buy it. There's only so much demand. But everybody, no matter where you go, no matter what circles you go into, they're either a potential customer. Even if they choose to stay in their home forever, they could purchase investment property, they could purchase an Airbnb, or they've got family members or friends that would refer people to you. And it's exciting. And everybody wanted to talk about real estate, which was one of the things that I always loved and promoted so heavily. So I really, really do believe that beyond a shadow of a doubt. You talked about taking calculated risks. I think there's a blend between mix and passion, right? If you're laying around and you can't quit thinking about it, you need to give it some attention, right? You need to seriously contemplate it, but you still need to consider the cost. You still need to sit down with a wise advisor or two. I sat with three men who I have been a part of a men's group for 20 plus years, but 3 of the men out of that men's group, we sat down in a quiet room, and the entire 2 or 3 hours, however long we were together, was just about me and what I was looking at and what I was considering. And I laid out these options that I had before me that I was wrestling with. There happened to be 3 at the time. And every single one of those, and the one that I couldn't quit thinking about was Home Smiles, and closely followed by FedEx. And then there was a third one that will remain unnamed. And they sat down, and all these guys, not knowing what I just told you, every single one of them looked and said, "It sure seems," and they pushed the 2 in front of me. And they all said, "This one, these 2, for you, for your giftedness, for what you bring to the table, for the future, as it relates to the market, as it relates to the future of that market, these sure seem like strong options for me, for you." And ultimately, those were the ones that I picked. But again, it was a calculated risk. I called a lot of people that were doing it across the country. Many of them were not having a lot of success, but I couldn't get it off my heart. And I believe it was the right move. I know the demand's there. I know the need is there. I know the future is there. And it's just, it's been very, very, very exciting.
That's cool.
The last thing that I think I would say is that when it comes to risk, when it comes to taking risk, I don't regret that I didn't do this earlier. Yeah, there are days that I sit around and go, gosh, if I'd had FedEx for the last 25 years, how many could we own by now, and how far could we have expanded? But it was during a season when I was very, very fulfilled. My encouragement to listeners, whether you're 25 or you're 65, if you're fulfilled, and if what you're doing is exactly where you should be, it's an alignment with your gift sets, you're passionate, you can't wait to get there in the morning, keep doing it, right? Keep doing it. But when you get to the point where it's drudgery, when you get to the point where you're counting the days, you're counting the weeks, you're counting the months, you're counting the years, there are options out there. Find somebody to help you understand what those options might be. I told you that I used the funds that we had set aside for retirement in order to invest differently in our retirement. But there's a whole bunch more options out there that exist that would afford somebody the ability to get into business on their own, as you found out. Would you agree?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think you hit on something earlier that I don't want to overlook, and I think it's cool. I was listening to a podcast literally on the way here today, a Josh Howerton podcast, the pastor in Texas, and he was just talking through, I can't remember, I think it was Ephesus or something, and in Paul's letter somewhere in Scripture, he's saying in Ephesians, I think it was, calling for 2 of his brothers to walk and bring him something. I think it was when he was in prison, and in the end, he breaks down, it was 42 miles that he asked him to walk. He's like, do you have 2 brothers in your life that you can sit there and say, hey, would you walk 84 miles round trip to drop me off something? Right. And, it's cool looking back on, you have two brothers who sit there and go, let's just spend hours in a room and just only talk about you and how we can find what God has called you to do in the future. And, you know, no matter your age, if you're sitting there and you're alone and you're sitting there and going, okay, God, like I have the Holy Spirit in me, but I don't have people around me who were advisors, whether it be business wise or spiritually or just with your family. If you don't have people who can truly say, hey, let's take 2 hours and just sit here and just talk about how we can help plan your future better. You know, first thing would be is just, are you involved in a church that's challenging you to get together with people? And, you know, one of the guys that I would say is like that in my life is your nephew. You know, Ryder's one of my best friends, and I could call him now and he'd walk 42 miles to me. It might take him a little bit of time, but he'd get there. But, you know, it's just fun to
it'd be worth it when he got there.
Yeah, he'd be helpful. But I just think it's fun the way that your story has lined up with so many, you know, treat people the right way over time. And I think you're a good example of not using other people as stepping stones to further Brad DeVries' mission, but to further A, what God's called you to do, and B, how you can help others. And then when you look back and you blink and go, how was I Rookie of the Year in a Louisville market with all these people competing in these other markets that should be better than ours? Well, you have an unfair advantage because you have 30 years of pouring into people and people loving you, saying, we want to support what you want to do. And I think that's just a good challenge for whoever's listening today.
We couldn't be more thankful for that. But again, going back to your discussion about the people, first of all, if you've got a group of men or women like that in your life, use them. Use them.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Too many times I've made decisions without asking them, right? And they probably could have saved me some heartache. But don't be afraid to ask. Use them. If you don't have them, you know, I go back to the example that I just gave you of, you know, when I was looking for a business. Before I was looking for a business, I saw nothing. But once I started to look, once my radar was up,
BizBuySell.com.
They were everywhere. It's like when you're looking for a car or a truck, right? You know, you start looking for them, they're everywhere. When you're not looking for them, you don't see them. If you're looking for a group of men or women to come alongside of you and to be a part of that group, you start looking for them, they'll show up. They'll show up as long as you're looking in healthy places. I would agree with you.
That's good. What's last challenge you have? Doesn't have to be long. To somebody listening who says, I think I know what I want to do to take this risk, but I just need one more push. What's the thing to somebody just sitting on the edge going, I don't know if I can make that jump into any risk in their life?
Well, you know, first of all, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, I would listen for that small voice. I would listen to the counselor that indwells you, the Holy Spirit, and listen for either that nudge of yes or that nudge of no. I think it was Oswald Chambers. Don't quote me on this. I can never find it. But the quote was something like, you know, when you're asking God whether or not you should do something, if he gives you a yes, it's a yes. If he gives you a no, it's a no. If he gives you nothing, it's probably a no. But if he gives you a yes, go. If he gives you a yes, go and trust him with the rest. I really believe that. And I also believe that it's never too late. You know, we've already discussed my age a couple times, but I see myself doing this or some version of this for a long time. I truly want to work and I don't want to work doing something that I'm doing just to get a paycheck or just to get benefits. I wanted it to be a lot of fun. I wanted it to matter. I wanted it to matter to my family. I wanted it to be a hill to climb. And I'm really excited about it. So yeah, my challenge would be, if you're thinking about it, start looking. The Lord will show you. Pray, ask for guidance, ask for the yes, ask for the no to the best of your ability. Seek wise counsel. If they're not there, go find them. They're there someplace. Yeah, it's exciting. I tell people all the time, I loved what I did. I loved the people. I went to a little reunion luncheon with probably 125 Seminole agents the other day. I went to a funeral visitation probably 2 months ago up in Cincinnati. There were a number of our team there. I love them. I miss them. They're such sweet people. I've got relationships that I'll forever cherish in those companies. But there's not been one day, there's not been 1 hour, there's not been 1 minute that I've regretted the decision to do what we did. And it's been hard. I've worked harder this year than I've worked in a long, long time.
You're having to come on podcast.
I'm gonna have to come
It's
on a
hard
podcast.
work.
I don't. We need to wrap this thing up. But no, I've. There's not been 1 minute that I have wished I would have made a different decision. It's been so much stinking fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. Thanks. I know you're going to encourage people with this today. So thank you. And
I hope so. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having coffee with me.
You keep
some
doing
water
what you're
with me,
doing.
and,
You keep doing
thank you.
what you're doing. You are. I've watched a lot of people in the real estate business. I've watched them for a quarter century now. I've watched them for longer than that. And you are. I tell people, if Nolan Ryan needed to be on the mound pitching, right? He threw 100-mile-an-hour fastballs every day, and he needed to be on the mound pitching. You've been given the gift of understanding people, caring for people, looking out for their best interests, and you're hungry. You're really hungry, and I think God's got you right where you're supposed to be. Perfect mix of people, ministry, service, and ultimately success.
Thank you.
It's been fun to watch, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. It's exciting.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, Sam.